Jean-Léon Gerome. Jean-Léon Gerome. In 1853, the fin de Siecle moved into the boite, a group of studios in the Rue Notre-Dame-des-Champs in Paris. This would become a meeting place for other artists, writers and actors. George Sand entertained in the small theatre of the studio great artists of her time, such as the composers Berlioz, Brahms, Rossini, the novelists Gautier and Turgenev. George Sand was a novelist, memoir writer and journalist. Her real name, Amandine Lucille Aurore Dupin de Franciel. She was one of the most popular, renowned writers in the whole of Europe in her generation, more so than Victor Hugo or Balzac. In England, anyhow. In the 1830s and 40s, the European Romantic era. 50 volumes of plays, tales and political texts, and 70 novels. She criticised the institution of marriage and advocated women's rights, just like her great-grandmother before her, Louise Dupin. She fought against the prejudices of a conservative society. You really should know about George Sand. A very quick catch-up for you. You might enjoy a Juliette Binoche film, Children of the Century. There is flashback and impromptu that she features. But seeing as we're up to modern day, Jean-Léon Gerome, an academic painter, a range of oeuvres, historical painting, Greek mythology, Orientalism, portraits, a real artistic climax to hyperrealism in a historical context. Getting close to winning the Prix de Rome of the École des Beaux-Arts, he gave up on that for popularism. YouTube censors him. Follow YouTube guidelines for naming in the description all the artworks that you use. You will still get it taken down. It's not 18 plus content. It's beyond treating us all like children. Jean-Léon Gerome was born in Vesoul, in the Haute-Saône. He went to Paris in 1840, where he studied under Paul Delaroche, who he accompanied to Italy. His painting The Cockfight is an academic exercise depicting a nude young man and a slightly lightly draped young woman with two fighting cocks. The Bay of Naples in the background. He sent this painting to the salon of the École des Beaux-Arts, and it gained him a third-class medal. Sudden success. The Virgin, the Infant, Jesus and St. John. Then Anacreon, Bacchus and Cupid. Now, I can only really assume that YouTube considers that these are images of a woman mentally damaging her children by physically or encouraging inappropriate behaviour. There is Bacchus and Love drunk. And Napoleon is a recurrent theme, but it's the colonial locations that Napoleon Bonaparte enabled that are really a lot of his subject. Egypt, particularly popular. And the fascination with harems and hookah and marijuana smoking. While Romanticism, his titillation and realism fell out of fashion with the coming of the Impressionists. He was perhaps the zenith of higher quality than photography type painting. He was real HD 4K. You really feel like you're in the harem or the slave auction of ancient Rome. Truth is a nude woman emerging from a well, an aphorism of the philosopher Democritus. In 1902, the new aesthetic, he characterises the profound and irreversible influence of photography on art. He does have a diatribe against Impressionism, but in his own words, photography is an art. It forces artists to discard their old routine and forget their old formulas. It opens up our eyes and forces us to see that which profoundly we have not seen, a great and inexpressible service for art. It is thanks to photography that truth has finally come out of her well. She will never go back. In 2012, the Musée de Beaujeu in Moulins in France. Truth is at the museum. This is our Mona Lisa, the advertising claimed. YouTube claims much more. It's an astonishing range of visual exotica, but that exotica is considered erotica, in precise, minute detail, achieved with thin layers of paint that don't reveal brushstrokes. Wealthy Americans particularly seek out this erotica of the fin de Siecle. A quarter of his production in his lifetime was destroyed in the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. His hyperrealism was just too much exotica for the world of California. Jerome's ethnographic imagery of Arab and Islamic culture was controversial in his own lifetime. It's even more closely scrutinised now, as he had a sort of penchant for female nudity. Modern critics raise issues of cultural appropriation and sexual exploitation. These issues of sex and race were epitomised in the 2019 use of his painting The Slave Market in an anti-Muslim campaign poster by the right-wing populist German party, Alternative for Germany, to the consternation of the American museum that owns the painting. But he is increasingly valuable and collectible, despite the stereotyping. As something of a record of the day, the Qatar Museum's Authority of Doha are after his works. He travelled and realised, under very difficult circumstances, with almost no knowledge of what to expect. He didn't travel to conquer or to find oil. He travelled to discover and to understand. It's claimed that Doha want to take back themselves as a subject and control how it's used by owning the works. But there is the fear that under different circumstances they could disappear forever, like the 1905 fire. Artworks that at the time sold for $20,000, and then in 1942, $500, are now being sold for $2 or $3 million. During Jerome's lifetime, he donated some of his works to a museum, and so did his heirs afterwards, to the Musée Georges Garat in Vesoul in Haute-Saône. To help you out with a bit of context, in Egyptian Arabic, an almeh, from alima, to know, to be learned, almeh was a class of courtesans, or female entertainers in Egypt, women educated to sing and recite classical poetry and to discourse wittily. They were educated girls of good social standing, trained in dancing, singing and poetry, present at festivals and entertainments, and hired as mourners at funerals. Awalim, as they came to be known, were first introduced as singers, not dancers come prostitutes, according to Lane's book, Manner and Costumes of Modern Egyptians. Additionally wrote that Almeh didn't display herself at all, but sang from behind a screen or from another room at weddings and other respectable festivities. Consequently, the Awalem were not subject to exile in Upper Egypt. In the 19th century, Almeh came to be used as a synonym to all the erotic local dancers who usually came from very poor backgrounds and sometimes contributed in sexual acts in return for money, hence why the traditional erotic dancers of Egypt got their performances banned in 1834 because they were considered unclassy. As a result of the ban, all the dancers in modern Egypt became awalim, which was officially classified as a legal occupation in Egypt. Translated into French as alamé, the term is to be synonymous with belly dancer in European Orientalism of the 19th century. Badia Messabbeni, perhaps the most notable, in the 1920s.